Good morning, and thank you for attending today's ceremony. I'm Zaina Jabril, proud principal of Dearborn High School, and I'd like to welcome all of you as we gather here today to honor our service members and remember the sacrifices that they've made for our country. To begin the ceremony, please stand for the presentation of our nation's colors by the Dearborn Police Honor Guard. Hold on. Okay, we'll start over. Please remain standing while 12th grader and member of our women's ensemble, Maya Whitworth, sings the national anthem.
Present. Arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order. Arms. March time. March.
Thank you, Maya, and thank you to the Dearborn Police Honor Guard. We're here today to honor our heroes and remember their achievements, their courage, and their dedication, and to say thank you for their sacrifices. Memorial Day was called Decoration Day. It originated when grieving families began decorating the graves of their lost soldiers with flowers and wreaths. These informal honors led to the first formal Memorial Day observance on May 5th, 1866. Congress officially recognized Memorial Day as a first holiday in 1887. Today, many Americans go to the cemeteries to decorate the graves and honor the brave men and women who gave their lives for our country. Your presence here today and all such gatherings across the country is a tribute to those who served our country. Now I'd like to welcome to the podium our Master of Ceremonies for this morning, 12th grader Mark Struman.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as you remember and honor those who have risked their lives in the service of our nation. One of these brave men is Sergeant Douglas Radcliffe. A native of Michigan, former Sergeant Douglas Radcliffe was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and eventually moved to Canton, Michigan, where he grew up with his two sisters. Although Sergeant Radcliffe did not come from a military family, he felt a calling to help his country during a time of need. So for his experience, Sergeant Radcliffe attended Parris Island Academy in South Carolina and graduated in 2005. During Sergeant Radcliffe's times in the military, he was a V-22 Crew Chief Gunner Instructor. Sergeant Radcliffe educated Marines students on how to fix helicopters, organize a crew for flight, and taught students about air assault techniques. For his distinguished career, Sergeant Radcliffe has been recognized and honored for his service and accomplishments. Sergeant Radcliffe was awarded the Marine Corps National Defense Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Medal, the Marine Corps Conduct Medal, the Naval Achievement Medal, the Naval Unit Commendation Medal, and the Command Letters for Recognition of Service. Now, please join us as we listen to a message from Douglas Radcliffe.
Good morning. My name is Douglas Radcliffe, and I'm a social studies teacher here at Dearborn High School. While most of you know me as Mr. Radcliffe or as Coach Radcliffe, when I got my start as a teacher, my students then knew me as Sergeant Radcliffe, as I was a serving aircrew flight instructor with Victor Mike Tango 204, flying out of New River Air Station in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Today I was invited to speak to you about the importance of this day and what it means to us as a country, and especially to those of us who served. When considering that task, a world of my own history flew through my thoughts. People I haven't talked to in years, and some people who I will never see again came to mind. Stories I have never told and probably never will, along with stories I love to tell often. I have hundreds of good stories from my time in the service. A few of you here today have heard some of them. Some are happy and others are not so much. My fellow service members and I often gather together and think back on our service fondly. When we talk about the training and the operations we took part in, we mostly smile. Today, however, is not about me. Today is about the men and women who are not here to share their stories. Today is about the 13 former students that I taught who are no longer with us as the result of their service to our nation and to the countless others who have fallen in the defense of this country. Today is about the families they leave behind. Today is about the children they lost the opportunity to raise and the wives they left behind trying to pick up the pieces in the aftermath. Today is about the gratitude owed to the men and women from all over our nation who died in defense of all of us. The impacts of the fallen are vast, and the memories of them are important. Today is the day that we pause and remember them. For me, personally, today is a sad day, but also a day that I look back on and smile on the men I knew. As a country, we stop once a year and think about those that gave the greatest sacrifice for us. This is a beautiful and important thing. It is important to enjoy our holidays, and it is without question acceptable to enjoy this day with family. However, it is also valuable to take this day and recognize those we are celebrating, and that is what we are here to do today. Every man or woman who has fallen defending this country has left a great deal behind for all of us. Every one of them have a story that we can look back on. Regardless of if you knew them or not, they died for you, and to me, that is powerful to know. We can never forget the fact, and we can never forget them. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your remembrance today.
Next up, we have our keynote speaker this morning, Miss Lisa Lark, author and former Dearborn teacher.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Mr. Radcliffe, thank you. As Mr. Radcliffe said, Memorial Day is a time to honor those that have made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. With decades, and in one case, centuries between us, it's very easy to reduce these heroes to names on a memorial stacked one on top of the other in front of the Henry Ford Centennial Library. But in doing so, it is also easy to forget that they were real people, people who left behind families and friends, teachers, coaches, teammates, girlfriends, neighbors. The memories and stories from those left behind reveal so much about each of these individuals and tell us how they spent their time, what mattered most to them, and what made them smile. It is these stories and these memories from those that are left behind that let us know who they were. They allow us to better understand the details of their lives that made them unique and special. Because each one was extremely special, and I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you about just a few of them. You'll hear more from students and from Art shortly, but I wanted to fill in some of the gaps. How many of you are 17 right now? Okay. So was John Lipinski, Dearborn High's youngest fallen hero. He was just 17 when he joined the Army on his birthday in 1949. He died less than a year later, just days before his 18th birthday, killed in action in the Naktongbudge area of South Korea. But more importantly to me, and to those who left behind, he ran track and was in the band. Arnold Soper is the oldest of Dearborn High's fallen heroes, but I use the word oldest very loosely as he was only 33 when he was killed unloading medical supplies in the Solomon Islands in 1943. However, he was also the quarterback on the 1927 and 28 football team. Each person that Dearborn High has lost, every man and woman, and Dearborn High is this school that the only woman casualty that Dearborn lost in any of the conflicts, Helen Fluke, came from Dearborn High. They have hundreds of details in their lives that make them who they were. Lawrence Kronberg worked at Greenfield Village. Douglas Wright graduated from the University of Michigan. William Kreinen was in the varsity club and the youth council. Ford Simons was a class officer and played golf and basketball. Gerald McDavid graduated from Wayne State. Frederick Stewart was a member of the Latin Club. James Hath played in a local band. And when Roy Bye encountered a newspaper reporter while serving in Holland in World War II, he made a point of asking that reporter to convey a message to his fiancée back in Dearborn to let her know he was okay. These may seem like small, minute details of normal lives, and that's exactly why they're so important to remember. They help us keep in mind that every time we see numbers of Americans lost in World War I or World War II or Korea or Vietnam or the global war on terror or the Persian Gulf, or even the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, each one of those numbers represents a person who was mourned and missed, and whose lives was made up of hundreds, if not thousands, of minute details that represent a person, a human, and a life cut far too short. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lark. I would like to now welcome our district superintendent, Dr. Glenn Maleko, to the podium.
Good morning, everyone, student, staff, honored guests. I want to acknowledge, I know we have some military veterans here, and I want to acknowledge the military veterans. I also know that we have our board trustee, Mary Petlichkoff here, and board president, Jim Thorpe. And I know that we also have some council people here, Councilwoman Herrick and Councilman Paris. So glad that we have some of the dignitaries. And I want to thank the principal, the staff, and the students for putting this together. As we approach the start of a long weekend, I know we're all thinking about how nice it will be to have a few extra days off. A little more time to relax, maybe get some yard work done, or spend time with friends. There's nothing wrong with enjoying our holidays. In fact, it's important for our own health to be able to unwind and slow down a bit. I think you all can agree. However, it's also important to make sure we don't forget the true meaning behind this very special holiday. I know Principal Jabril already spoke of it. Memorial Day didn't begin with any big fanfare or official declaration. It was started by people who would gather to place flowers on graves and honor those military personnel who died during the Civil War. They called it, as she mentioned, Decoration Day, and over time it kept growing and growing. After World War I, the holiday evolved to commemorate American military personnel who died in all wars, and then much later, the day became known as Memorial Day and was moved to the last Monday in May. In November, we have a day to pay tribute to and thank our veterans, those who have served in the armed forces. But on Memorial Day, we pause with reverence to honor those who gave their life while serving the military. We owe it to those fallen heroes and their families to never forget the true meaning of Memorial Day. Many who died while serving in the armed forces were at the very start of their life, as Ms. Lark mentioned. They had plans, dreams, and hopes. They were looking forward to a future filled with friends and family. They were the next firemen, doctors, business owners, and teachers. Like many of you, I too had family members serve in the armed forces. My grandfather, who passed away 11 years ago, served in the U.S. Navy in World War II. I heard many stories from him, and he was very proud to serve his country. I'm fortunate, though, I was able to hear those stories firsthand directly from my grandfather. On Memorial Day, we must remember the families who were never able to hear those stories firsthand because their loved one was lost while serving their country. Let them know that their family member is appreciated and remembered. Let them know that the ultimate sacrifice, the price that was paid for our continued freedom, will not be forgotten. President Franklin Roosevelt said, "Those who have long enjoyed such privileges as we enjoy forget in time that men have died to win them." I would add men and women to that phrase. So this weekend, enjoy the days off, spend time with friends and family, and maybe even grab a lawn chair and make your way to the big parade on Michigan Avenue. But always remember the true meaning of Memorial Day. Remember the mothers, daughters, sons, and fathers who served our country and gave their life defending our freedom. Thank you, and may God bless our fallen, our veterans, our active military, and this great nation, the United States of America.
Thank you, Dr. Maleko. In the next portion of our ceremony, current Dearborn High students and alumni will help to honor Dearborn High alumni who have lost their lives in the service of our nation. I would like to call Reem Elzagir to the podium as she presents fallen hero Walter Blankertz.
World War I is also known as the First World War, the Great War, and even the war to end all wars. Whatever it may be known as to you, it is one familiar to all. This fierce conflict engulfed the entire globe, those from every race, ethnicity, and religion enlisted in the fight. It involved 32 countries, it was fought on 5 continents, and took the lives of nearly 20 million around the world. The impact of such a violent phenomenon created waves that reached even Dearborn. One of our very own pioneers, who graduated in the early 1910s, Walter Blankertz, made the ultimate sacrifice for his country and its people. He was the only known World War I veteran from Dearborn to lay down his life in the pursuit of freedom. In the military, he was better known as Sergeant Blankertz of the 120th Machine Gun Battalion. He was tragically killed in action on the 1st of August in 1918 while performing his duties in a French-American counteroffensive against the Germans in France. Such a noble service is reserved for the bravest of us all. Men and women like Blankerts are the epitome of American heroes. Every day, these men and women stand guard in anticipation, ready to defend and protect our great country. I briefly spoke to a veteran about Memorial Day, and he said to me, "This day isn't about people like me. I got to come back home. Memorial Day is about those who did not get to come back home." Thank you, and help me welcome Hetty Kassir to present the fallen hero, George Lovegood.
World War II is widely regarded as the most catastrophic event between our modern-day nations. It was the most widespread and deadly war in history, involving over 30 countries and more than 50 million civilian and military deaths. Our world powers at the time united to end fascism and fight for liberty. With that, they brought their young, brave soldiers, including some from our own hometown, Dearborn. As Dearborn residents, we have all heard of Lovegood Park. Most, however, do not know where the name Lovegood originated from. It came from a Dearborn High, class of 1935 graduate, George Lovegood. George was a star football, basketball, and baseball player. He was also in student council, orchestra, and sinfonia club during his time as a pioneer. He attended Michigan State University, where he played baseball and received his Bachelor of Science in 1939. Still, why was our park named after him? On top of all of his academic and athletic achievements, George also sacrificed his life for this nation. He was the first Dearborn soldier killed in action during World War II. George was killed on April 12, 1942, at the age of 24 during a Japanese bombing raid at Corregidor, which was the fortress guarding Manila Bay in the Philippines. George Lovegood was not only a true American, but a true pioneer. Thank you. I would like to invite Sukaina Bazzi to the podium to present the fallen hero, Howard Ballentine.
On June 25, 1950, the Korean War began when North Korean soldiers poured across the 38th parallel and invaded present-day South Korea. The United Nations, with the United States as the principal force, came to the aid of South Korea. At the time, many feared that this was the first step in a global communist campaign. For this reason, the United States intervened. To support this effort and to combat opposing forces, the United States sent thousands of its people, including Dearborn's very own Howard Ballentine. Howard Ballentine was a tennis player and a member of the class of 1951 at Dearborn High School. After graduating, he began working at a local supermarket until he was drafted. Private Ballentine was mortally wounded in Korea on July 7, 1953, while serving as a member of the 45th Infantry Division in the U.S. Army. He was laid to rest in Northview Cemetery in Dearborn on September 12, 1953, 5 days before his 21st birthday.
Thank you, Sukaina. Our last fallen hero being remembered this morning is James Heward. This will be presented by Dearborn High alumni, Mr. Art Garrison.
Good morning, all of you young pioneers. Excuse my voice, it's going. My name is Art Garrison, and I graduated from Dearborn High School in 1965. And a lot of you guests have already stolen a lot of the old guys' thunder up here. But I'm going to kind of stick with James Heward, since him and I grew up together. It is an honor to be here. And the reason for this assembly is something that means a great deal to me, as you can tell from my voice. And so I thank everyone who has helped put this gathering together, and especially my new friend, Kristen Giggler. Okay, Memorial Day is a day dedicated to remembering the brave men and women who sacrificed their lives for our country and our freedom. My generation has a large number of people to pay tribute to this day. I will touch on James Heward, but we also had 9 other gentlemen and classmates of mine that didn't come home. As I look out at you today, I remember the time when I was in those seats and I was wondering what my life would look like when I wasn't in this building, wondering where my friends and I were going to end up and what we were going to do. One of those friends was a couple years older than I, James Linton Heward. We lived in the same neighborhood, played at the same parks, attended the same schools. Jim was a strong, kind, and brave, hardworking, fair, and had fire in his eyes and a passion for life. James graduated from Dearborn High School in 1963. Upon his graduation, he went to Central Michigan University, where he received his degree and he became a school teacher. He was a school teacher at Fortson High School. All of this during a war where James felt that he wasn't doing enough. So a new teacher, a young husband, and father decided to join the Air Force to defend the country with duty and honor. In July of 1972, Captain James Heward was shot down over North Vietnam at the age of 27 years old. He was Dearborn's only serviceman listed as missing in action. Excuse me. For 25 years, his family had no real answers as to where Jim might be until 1997, when his remains were positively identified. He was given a full military funeral at Arlington National Cemetery, a service fitting of a man who gave his life. Now, the city of Dearborn does a wonderful job of honoring and remembering all the men and women we have lost throughout the years, and you can tell that on Memorial Day when the streets are lined with all kinds of people attending the parade. These heroes who remain to us are everything we have today. To them and their families, I want to say thank you. Life might not always work out the way we think it's going to while we're young. But if you follow the example of James Linton Heward and never quit, you can have a life you are proud to have, and it doesn't matter how you end up. With that, I will thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Garrison. Thank you, Mr. Radcliffe, Ms. Lark, Dr. Maleko, and all student speakers. In closing, I'd like to say that our gathering is just one small spark in the flame of pride that burns across the nation in honor of Memorial Day and every day. It's not a lot, but it's one small way that we can honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice so that we can live in freedom. Your presence here today is a tribute to all of them. I'd like to recognize and thank the individuals who helped make this ceremony a success, Mr. McCloskey and Ms. Begowski, for preparing our orchestra students, trumpet player, and soloist for today's performance. Mr. Forrester for helping us coordinate speakers, Mr. Viscomi for his flexibility in allowing us to use the auditorium, which is ultimately his classroom, Mr. Deere for helping with the lights and sound, Corporal Hanson and the Dearborn Police Honor Guard, student presenters who did a fantastic job this morning, and the person who organized and coordinated this entire event, our administrative intern, Ms. Kristen Gigler. Last but not least, I'd like to thank city officials who were here with us this morning, Councilwoman Leslie Herrick and Councilman Paris, Board Trustee Mary Petlichkoff, and President Jim Thorpe, and administrators from central office, Mr. Tom Wall, Ms. Fatmi Faraj, our executive director, and of course, Dr. Maleko. Thank you for attending and for your ongoing support. Now I'd like to call Mark and Sukaina, who will lead our honored guests and dignitaries to the monument outside for the second part of the ceremony, which will take place outside near the James Heward Monument. All other students, please remain seated during the recessional, and your teachers will dismiss you by row from the back. Thank you all for coming, and remember that we have refreshments in the counseling office for all of our visitors. Dignitaries and guests, please join us outside.
Students, once again, please remain seated during the recessional. Students, please remain seated.
Students in the audience, please remain seated.
It's hard. Thank you all for attending today, and thank you everyone here at the alma mater, DHS. I was going to say something real smart, but I better just go ahead and read what I've got. It's just a little prayer for veterans. You have blessed us with brave men and women who are willing to defend our freedom. May your protection and grace surround them every day. Let your healing hand be upon us who suffer wounds and injuries. May those who have made the ultimate sacrifice rest forever in your holy presence. Confront or comfort the families who mourn and are left to remember the precious lives of their loved ones. Help us to honor and support them. Let us ever be mindful of each sacrifice made. On behalf of the American people, by our sons, daughters, husbands, wives, and mothers, fathers, and friends, always remember these wonderful people. Thank you.